Okay, we shall continue our Chatzar Yosef class. We are on page 48. Just as a minor announcement here, it's actually a very major one. The special edition of our Sefer Baruch Hashem is out. It's not available online, it's only available in person. Find someone who knows me, and I can get you a copy. It's actually cheaper than the Amazon version because Amazon really likes to make their money, as you know. But this is a very, very nice special edition version. It's beautiful, in the hand it feels so much better, and it's more colorful and better binded and everything. It was made in Israel, so that is that. The content inside is the same, the words are the same, so don't feel bad if you already got it. Oops. Actually, on Amazon, there I can fix little mistakes, like little errors, spelling errors and grammar errors. Over there, I can update it, and whenever you buy a new one, it's updated. With this one, I cannot, unfortunately, but there are few and far in between. Okay, so we left off speaking about the second part of Kamtza and Bar Kamtza, where Bar Kamtza took an animal from the Caesar, a calf, and he told the Caesar, listen, the Jews don't respect you, they're rebelling against you, and he did it on purpose, obviously, and the Caesar said, okay, let's do a test. He gave him a calf to sacrifice at the temple, at the Beit HaMikdash, which was still standing, the second one. And on the way there, Bar Kamtza was escorting the animal. He put a blemish in the animal. Some say it was in the eye, some say it was in the lip. Rashi says specifically it was the upper lip. And we went through some Mefarshim. Now we're just going to talk about the Maharal's opinion on this, very important, deep opinion, on page 48. And then we're going to go into the Chatzar Yosef portion of this, Be'ezrat Hashem. Says the Maharal, the temple, page 48, the temple brought completion to the entire world. That was one of the purposes of the temple. If the other nations of the world knew how much the temple benefited them as well, they would have built it already in gold. That's the words Maharal says. By now, if they knew how much benefit the temple brings not only to the Jews, but to them also, to the Goyim, they would have themselves sponsored to build it. In all gold. It has a role in the world where it brings full completion. What he's talking about is that it ties in the entire loop of all the structures of the worlds, okay, on a deep level. Meaning our world with all of the levels above, all the way up to Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's the channel. It's the system, so to speak, the channel basically through which you can make direct communications up and down. And by doing that, you're bringing all the beracha down through that channel for the whole world. That is why the Torah says that offerings from the nations are accepted, right? Goyim are allowed to give sacrifices. When Israel had the temple, it put them one step ahead of the rest of the nations. Even though the country may have been under foreign dominion, right? So at the time here, the temple was standing, but the overlords were the Romans. The Romans had control of that area of the time. This unity between Israel itself was the only thing that could have destroyed the temple, not foreign nations, says the Maharal. And that is exactly what happened via Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. Right? This story was a story of division. And that's why the Gemara blames them for the eventual destruction. Because only division could have destroyed the temple. Division amongst the Jews. It's the only thing. Bar Kamtza told the Caesar to offer a sacrifice at the temple so that he could highlight this very fact, that there was division. The Jews' refusal to accept it, which we're going to see in the next section, would show that they considered themselves one step above the other nations. And they feel that way precisely because they have the temple. This evinces, which means causes, a rebellion against their overlords, the Romans, sending the message that they do not consider themselves to be under the Romans' dominion. Right? He was trying to highlight this fact that they're not going to take your temple. They're not going to take your sacrifice. The Romans, Caesar's sacrifice. And by doing that, they're showing that they're better than you. They think they're better than you. And that was the seed that created conflict. Other nation standards for sacrifices are based on their ideology, which centers on the body and the physical. So now he's going to address the question that we had. Bar Kamtza made specifically a blemish in the eye or in the lip, where for our Jewish standards it makes the animal unfit, non-kosher to be sacrificed, but for Goy standards they also had sacrifices for their own gods. For their standards it would be fine. The little thing in the face, little thing in the eye or in the lip would not disqualify it for them. He did it on purpose for them to feel that difference. Now, he's going to explain why. Why is it so that for us, we care about these little things in the eye and mouth, whereas for them, they don't care about it?
Because
he says...
They don't have any spiritual guidance with this.
What does spiritual have to do with lip and mouth?
No, like the blemishes and everything, right? That's not kosher.
No, they had some rules. What do you mean they had rules? They had some blemishes.
Defined as ours.
But why? That's the question. Why is it different?
Because they have no guidance. You know what I mean?
What do you mean they have no guidance? Their leaders guide them. Their leaders make the decisions.
Our guidance is God.
Fine.
Our guidance was man.
Okay, fine. But the question is, they also see that we Jews also sacrifice, have standards for sacrifices. Why don't they copy our standards?
We're higher than them. No, why would they copy our standards if they think they're right over us?
But they copy a lot of things from us.
Give me an example.
Look at the different cults and religions throughout the world. They copy a lot of things from the Jews. A lot of the major ritualistic things comes from the Jews. Yeah, from the Torah.
Temple?
He was in the Second Temple area.
Technically, we shared a religion at that time. Technically.
No, we never shared a religion. They branched off.
Abrahamic religions.
Abrahamic is not a religion. Abrahamic is a root from which three roots came.
It's the Old Testament.
Okay,
We all believe in the Old Testament.
Yes.
But they implement the new one as well.
But they hold that the Old Testament was a redo. It was redone. It was an old model in their eyes. You understand? Again, so let's see over here. The Maharal says basically more or less what you guys were saying. As long as the body of the animal is complete, the sacrifice is acceptable. So for the Goyish standards, at that time, the idol worshippers, if the body was fine, had no blemishes, it's good. The body, meaning not excluding the face. But for Israel, whose concern is not just the body, but also the tzura. Tzura in Hebrew means a form or a shape or a form or shape, but it's a term used in the deep writings a lot. Look at note 26, it explains the term. Tzura, literally shape, form. It is difficult to translate this word in the context that Maharal is using it. It means the internal form borderlining the spiritual form.
Internal form or from?
Form. Thank you. Borderlining the spiritual form, of which the eyes and the lips, as well as the rest of the facial structures, are a window into. Right? So the face is much more deeply connected to the internal form of something, of a person. The other nations, meanwhile, only care about the body of the animal, meaning from the neck down. Since this is where the meat is. What is the animal for, after all? Right? In the deeper wisdom, the head represents the hidden intellectual and spiritual realms. The body from the neck down represents the physical, and the neck is the connector between the two. Okay, that's based on the World Mask, where Rabbi Tatz, who was a great inspiration to our book as well, Rabbi Tatz. That was in his book, The World Mask, pages 129 to 130. Yes.
If a person practices either vegan or vegetarianism, is that a problem? Is that going against Torah?
Side topic, technically no.
Because you're not using the animal for its purpose. You're claiming that as a bigger purpose.
No, the animal, you don't have to use the animal. You don't have to eat meat. There's no obligation to eat meat. Again, there's a machlok regarding Yom Tov. It's a big mitzvah to eat meat. It's a big machlok. Some say no, you don't have to eat meat. You could eat dairy and stuff. You could eat fish. But if you're going to be absolutely technical, no. Unless you're a kohen at the time of the Beit HaMikdash, where you had to eat certain parts of the meat for that sacrifice, then you can't be a vegetarian then.
Okay, but like a vegan's mindset, right?
Also, there's Korban Pesach. There's we don't have that nowadays. But back in the day, you couldn't be vegetarian.
Like a person like a vegan, right? They don't use anything that's animal products.
Yeah, sure.
Because they think that's not, it's whatever, it's
cruel, yeah.
Cruel, but isn't that sort of against the Torah? The Torah's way of...
Is what against the Torah?
That thinking, that ideology,
that eating animals is cruel? Yeah, we don't agree that it's cruel. It's not cruel, that's what God created them. Is what going against the Torah? What's your question, man?
The ideology of veganism.
It's like what is the ideology of veganism?
Saying, I don't want to give my son a brit because it's cruel to him at the 8th day of his birth.
Okay. Again, the Torah allows you to eat meat in a kosher way, of course, and other animal products allows you. Fish, eggs, dairy, b'chavod. There is no prohibition. Why? Because we hold that animal's purpose, one of its purposes is that, and God allowed it to us. And therefore, if we use it, it's not cruel. Again, as long as you follow the kosher guidelines. So no, we do not agree that it's cruel to eat an animal. We do not agree. It's cruel to make an animal suffer for no reason. Sure, there are laws about that you're not allowed to make an animal suffer for no reason. But if there is some benefit that a human being is deriving from it, it's allowed. Okay. Again, we cannot fall into the ideology that absolutely everything is created equal and everything is equal. It's not true. Human beings are more precious and more important than animals. That's a fact in Torah ideology. Animals are a lower level being, created in part for the purpose to be used by human beings. That's it. Okay. So anyway, says the Maharal over here, back in the top. For Israel, whose concern is not just the body, but also the tzura, a seemingly insignificant blemish such as dokin, right? The Gemara called her dokin, it's like a little dot in the eye, is still significant enough to invalidate an offering, according to our Jewish standards, because the power of the eye is something separate from the physical. Number 27, see previous note. Furthermore, on the bottom 27, the Maharal brings Kohelet, a pasuk in Kohelet that says, "My heart saw a lot of wisdom and knowledge." Those are the words that Shlomo Melech writes in Kohelet. My heart saw a lot of wisdom. You see a connection that wisdom, which is a spiritual thing, yes, is connected to seeing, to the eye.
You have wisdom and you use it. I can tell if someone has wisdom by their what's it called?
You're right, but
you technically you see it through people's actions.
The idea of sight is connected to wisdom, because when you see, that's how you learn. When you see things on a simple level, right? Imagine a blind person who was blind from birth. It's hard for him to become a very, very wise person conceptually. You need to see things in your brain. That's a simple answer. But on a deeper level, sight is connected to chokhmah. The Sefirah of Chokhmah. Chokhmah literally means wisdom. Sight is connected to that. Yeah.
Don't they say that wise people, they don't have to experience things, they can see someone go through something and then learn from that? Isn't that kind of like...
Sure, absolutely. You learn from seeing someone else make a mistake. That's the wiser thing to do than to make the mistake yourself. Yeah.
The eye, wisdom...
Sure, that's connected. It's connected. It's one of the facets, sure. Thus, sight is associated with wisdom and intellect, something beyond the physical. Back in the Maharal. Thus, for Israel, it is a blemish if there's a dot on the eye of the animal. And for the other nations it is not, because Israel is separate from the rest. Next paragraph. According to the opinion that the blemish was made on the lips, the significance is thus. The lips are where speech and the voice exit. Lips are part of speaking, yeah? You cannot pronounce certain letters without your lips. Pe, mem, right? A few other ones. And even though an animal does not have speech, it still has a voice. Right? Animals can make sounds. The voice itself is something non-physical, since it comes from the nefesh. 28. Nefesh simply it means soul. Specifically, it means the lowest and most basic part of the soul. Right? Which both animals and men possess. Both animals and men have a nefesh. There's different parts of the soul, different levels. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida. The lowest one is nefesh. That's basic life force to be alive. Okay, animals have that. The voice itself, so the blemish on the lip, a blemish on the lip is therefore a blemish on the non-physical, because it represents the voice, which the voice is non-physical, the nefesh, which Israel is particular about, while the Gentiles are not. Right? The opinion that the blemish was made in the eye, on the other hand, understands that the lips are more associated with speech than with the voice, and not really the voice. So this part of the Maharal is hard to understand. He's trying to explain why there's two different opinions in the Gemara, why they differ, why they're arguing. Right? One opinion says that it was in the eye, one opinion says it was in the lips. He's saying they disagree on the what the lip represents. According to the opinion, it says it was lips. He says the lips represents the voice and speech, and that's why that's non-physical.
Based on his interpretation of what lips mean and what eyes stand for, what does it have to do with why people are arguing whether it's in the eye or the lips? What is his interpretation of the eye having to do with wisdom and the lip having to do with non-physical, being non-physical? What does that bring to the argument of people saying it was the lip or the eye?
No, he's answering a different question. That's a different question.
What's the question?
The question is, why the two opinions? Why do the rabbis disagree in the Gemara?
How does this answer that?
So he's explaining. So he's saying, so one opinion holds that it was in the blemish Bar Kamtza made was in the eye. That's what he holds, only. The other opinion holds in the Gemara that the blemish is in the lip, only. So he went ahead and explained what the eye means, what the lip means, but now he's trying to explain why does this guy not say like him, and why is he not say like him? Why doesn't he say lip, or doesn't he say eye? Why is he only saying eye, he's only saying lip?
Does he come to his own what it was, or no? He just explained both sides.
He explains both sides. He explains both sides. Yeah. Yeah, and he's trying to explain, basically, defend why each one holds what he holds. That's these couple of lines here. So he says the opinion that the blemish was in the eye, on the other hand, he understands that lips are more associated with speech and not with the voice. So look at the 29. That is, the voice is not exclusively spiritual according to that opinion, because animals have voices too. Rather, only speech is considered spiritual, something only humans have. So making a blemish on the lip of the animal would not have represented a blemish on the non-physical, because it's only connecting to the voice. And animals have voice, and people have voices, but voice is not the spiritual part of it. It's the speech, it's the communication, it's the language, it's the spiritual part of it, according to that opinion. So that's why he says, no, it wasn't in the lip, it was actually in the eye, because the eye for sure is connected to a spiritual thing, which is wisdom. That's his opinion. Well, his other opinion says, no, he says lip is connected to voice, and voice also is spiritual enough. It doesn't have to be speech. Just a voice, just like an utterance of sound is enough. It's of tzura. That's basically what it is.
Why a parrot has a voice?
Ask Hashem when you see him after 120. Now, says further over here. Either way, both opinions agree, right? The point is, this was just like a trivial thing he said over here. But the point is that both opinions agree that the blemish was made in a part of the face which is conceptually separate from the physical, right? The face represents deeper spiritual things. Eyes are the windows to the soul, all these things. And that's why we care if there's a blemish in the animal on the eye or lip, and goyim don't. Good. Last paragraph here. Thus, Bar Kamtza's intent was to reveal to the Caesar that the Jews are conducting themselves on a level above the rest of the nations, and that it was the existence of the temple that afforded them such behavior. It was meaning that the Jews were showing off, or they felt really high because they had a temple. They felt better than you because they had a temple. They better than the goyim. They only sacrificed animals that met the standards for Israel, and not those that met the standards of the other nations, as we explained above. Look at note number 31 on the bottom. The perspective of the Caesar would be, what is the point of the permission for other nations to sacrifice offerings at the Jews' temple if they only use their own standards as a measuring stick rather than the standards of the ones offering the sacrifice? That's what the Caesar would say. Hold on a second. He would tell them, you Jews, allow other animals.
I don't care what the standard is in your house. You want to take off shoes, leave them on. It's my house.
Okay, that's a good defense, sure. But when the Roman says it's not your house, it's my house. I own this land. It's my land. Therefore, it's my house. Therefore, it's my rules.
That's a good rebuttal.
Good. Yes.
But the point that he's trying to make is that it's supposed to be for everyone, not just the Jews. But he's showing, Bar Kamtza is showing to him that
it's not really for everyone.
It's not for everyone. It's just for them.
Right, because they only use their rules.
And he doesn't want the Caesar obviously doesn't want that. But my question is that him doing this, doesn't it hurt himself because he at the end is a Jew, so he knows the significance.
He was driven by so much spite. He was an emotional, spiteful guy.
I don't think he knew the end result though. I don't think he knew he thought the parties that were going to get punished. He wasn't really like
But how is that going towards the parties?
He wanted the temple.
He's literally going
according to one of the
temple.
Right, and that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted.
I don't think he saw that.
That's what he wanted. What it is.
What Jew prays on the downfall of every single other Jew?
He had a spiteful revenge mission against the leaders, the rabbis, because they were there, watched him get embarrassed and doing. And the rabbis, what's precious to them?
All of Israel? Come on, that's worse than
specifically the temple. Yes. So they said, watch, I'm going to get you.
So that's
what he did. Yes, absolutely. No.
That's for a Jew to think like that?
You should remember one thing. The biggest enemy of the Jews throughout history is the Jews. That's what you have to know. No matter what it looks like, everything else is just an intermediary. If the Jews are good with the Jews, this is what the Maharal said in the beginning. The only thing that could have destroyed the temple was division. The only thing. And And that's exactly what happened.
I still don't think his intent. I don't think anyone brings that opinion that his intent was.
When you come to God after 120, you can ask, what was Bar Kamtza's intent?
It's going to be irrelevant. I wouldn't care at that point. I'm in heaven. I'm chilling.
Okay, so it says over here further, just to finish up the Maharal. Up until that point, it was understood that the temple served the whole world. But this incident orchestrated by Bar Kamtza convinced the Caesar that it only served Israel, putting Israel on a level beyond everyone else. This is not how a ruler wants his subordinates to conduct themselves, which encouraged him to start a military campaign against them. This is, as we'll see in the coming chapters, a war started after this. Okay, that was the Maharal. Now we enter the world, the courtyard of the Chatzar Yosef. Be'ezat Hashem, let's see a lot of deep things to explain here. We're going to start little by little. Okay. I don't know if we'll get the whole thing. Maybe we'll get through half of it. Be'ezat Hashem. We're on page 49. It seems that both opinions in our Gemara are true. Right off the bat, we want to say both are true. That Bar Kamtza blemished the animal both on the lip, on its lip, and the dokin of its eye. Okay? So I didn't make this up. If you look at the note number 1 on the bottom, this is the opinion of a very important book called the Shnei Luchot Brit. Over there is the source. If you want to look it up, he also says it was both. Right? Based on the principle of Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim, which means both these and those are the words of the living God. Which means whenever there's a machloket in the Gemara, in the deepest essence, they both are a facet of the truth. When it comes to halakha, when we have to follow one opinion because they're opposite opinions, we can't do both if they're opposite, right? We can only do one. In the physical world, we can only perform one thing. We can't do one and its opposite. So therefore, in halakha, we have to choose. Okay, we have a system where Rabbi Akiva versus any other rabbi, we choose Rabbi Akiva's opinion, right? Etc. Rishonim. We have how we break down halakha. But it doesn't mean that whoever Rabbi Akiva was arguing against, we say is completely wrong and out of left field. Chas v'shalom. He has his truth, and his truth is a piece of the Torah as well, right? We can only. But when it comes to these other things that like Haggadah things, not halachic things, we can say they're both true, and we can defend they're both true, and that's what we're saying here. Our Gemara makes it plain that what pushed Bar Kamtza off the edge was not the actions of the host. The host hostility was to be expected due to the rivalry they shared. They were enemies, so he wasn't mad at the host who embarrassed him, right? Rather, it was the lack of action on behalf of the rabbis at the banquet that put the nail in the coffin. As our Gemara says, he said to himself, since there were rabbis sitting there and they did not protest, I must infer that it was acceptable to them. So that was what irked him. That was what got him started. The rabbis. The notion of the Ben Yehoyada, what did he say? That the rabbis did not see Bar Kamtza being kicked out seems too far-fetched, right? Remember, the Ben Yehoyada, if you remember last class, he said that the rabbis were there, but they didn't see it. It couldn't be that they saw it. They would have said something. He thought they saw, but they didn't see. That's what he said. That was his opinion. Fine, he's entitled to that, but we're not going with that. How could he have thought that they saw, but meanwhile they didn't actually see? Practically, it seems difficult to posit such a notion. Rather, our Gemara makes it plain that they did see and kept quiet. Bar Kamtza then methodically placed the blemishes in these two specific anatomic locations of the animal to symbolize his revenge against the rabbis in a measure-for-measure fashion, as the Kotz Sofer explained. Right? The Kotz Sofer gave a simple answer. They saw with their eyes and they didn't protest with their mouth, which is why he put a blemish in the eye and the mouth. Simple answer. Good. It's much deeper than that, my friends. This is just the surface layer. The rabbis saw with their eyes the horrible humiliation of a Jew in public and sat completely idle, failing to use their mouths to protest the subjugation. Good. Now to tread deeper into the meaning of this blemish in the eye of the animal. We're going to start with the eye. Okay. The Maharal mentioned that blemishes in the eye and lip, facial structures, are quite significant in the Jewish standard for offerings because they correspond to concepts beyond the physical, a staple of Jewish philosophy. Right? This is very important. We understand that we go beyond the physical. We understand that things go beyond the physical. The eye is obviously the organ of sight. The physiology of sight, you know what physiology means?
Yeah.
What does physiology mean, Mike? You're a nurse, you can tell us.
I'd rather give somebody else a try.
Physiologist means, you guys know, you're going in dental school.
No.
Physiology means how the anatomy structures work,
Connect together.
how they function. That's it. How your body functions. That's physiology, and it's one of the most beautiful things you can ever learn. The more I learned it, the more I was amazed by God's amazingness. It's unbelievable, just how your sense of hearing works, how your sense of sight works. It's mind-boggling. I'm thinking about it now. It's these tiny little organs like this,
Sight is crazy.
and okay. I don't want to get into it now. I'm gonna I don't have the words. Look into it, learn about it. It's amazing. Anyway,
Just to side on that side, we actually see everything like either upside down or
It's
something.
upside down and back.
yes, your brain flips it. Yeah, but that's normal. It's also a hint. It's a sight. It's a hint. God created the world to give you hints. You just said, I'll repeat it. Your eyes work in such a way where they capture the image upside down, and then there's the nerves connect to the back of your brain here, the occipital lobe in the back, and your brain functions to flip the image up the right way. Right side up. What's a hint? What can we learn from that?
The question is, what's the purpose of that? Why can't we just...
To hint a certain concept to you. What is that? It says in the Gemara, this world is called Olam Hafuch. This world is called literally an upside down world. Which means whatever you see in this world as great and amazing and a high status, it has no substance. When you go to the real world, Olam Emet, the world of truth, you see that, why is it called upside down world? Everything that's high here is low there. And everyone who's low here is super high over there. In status and level. You understand? That's why the whole point is that whatever you see is beautiful, but it's not, it comes with asterisks. You have to be careful what you're understanding from what you see. Okay? Anyway.
First paragraph, I see that everyone's at fault.
What do you mean everyone?
Everybody involved.
Who's everybody involved?
Because if you break it down, you're saying Bar Kamtza wasn't mad at the host because the host...
He was mad, sure, but I'm saying, why did he go on this vendetta?
No, but
I'm just his actions.
I'm just saying, hey, it could have been stopped right there. The host, if he was just a law-abiding Jew, practice period, right?
Sure, he had a part.
I'm saying every single person, it was legit. Like the rabbis didn't. What's it called? Okay, you as a Jew could be like.
I hear what you're saying. I'm using the text of the Gemara to defend my argument. Because if you look at the text of the Gemara, which is again, it's on page 45. It says, let's see, meaning he said to himself, Bar Kamtza said to himself, since the rabbis were there and didn't protest. He didn't say, since I got embarrassed by the host, and the rabbis were there and didn't protest. I'm looking at the words. You have to look at the words. The words are there for a reason. Very, very specific. He says, since the rabbis were there and didn't protest, I'm going to show them. That was the main thing that got him. That was the main thing that pushed him to do this.
Okay, but as a again.
I'm not saying the host did nothing. Of course, I'm not saying the host is off the hook.
Everyone was at fault.
But the rabbis were more. Based on Bar Kamtza, how he understood it, the rabbis were. He said it himself. Says it himself.
How are you gonna blame somebody else for your actions?
What do you mean somebody
I don't
else?
care. I don't know.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Okay, Yosef, you throw me out of a party. There was a bunch of rabbis. Every single rabbi in the world was
Yes.
there. I'm gonna be like, because of them, what, they didn't do anything?
Is your name Bar Kamtza? You're somebody else. I'm not gonna say your name. You're somebody else, right? That's how you would understand. However you would understand. Bar Kamtza understood the situation that he was more bothered by what the rabbis didn't do than what the host did.
I can understand him.
Of course.
What he does, I can understand him.
I can understand a bunch of people who are wrong. I can play devil's advocate, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, right is right and wrong is wrong. At the end of the day,
listen to me. I'm not saying the host is right. Look, I'm not saying the host is right. I'm saying what pushed him to do it. Based on what. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Continue further over here. Second paragraph. The eye is obviously the organ of sight. And the physiology of sight cannot work without light from the outside world first entering into the eye. Okay, so this is how the sight works. If there's no light, all you see is darkness. Correct? You don't see anything. The way it works is first light penetrates through the lens of your eye. And then it bounces off the structures inside there, and there's certain cells that do the rest of the job. Okay? Like I summarize it here like this, which sets off, or the light goes in and it sets off a series of majestic biophysiological interactions on microscopic and macroscopic scales from the eye through the optic nerve, the brain, and beyond. Okay, I say beyond for a reason, because it doesn't stop at the brain. The brain is just a bag of mush. You ever think about that? Very physiological thing. The brain is just a bag of mush. I held the brain in my hands. It's just a bag of mush. How does this bag of mush create the sensation of sight, of hearing, of thoughts? You ever think about it? It's just a bag of mush. It's meat.
It sends signals
To what?
That's a simple way.
To what?
to your soul.
Oh, you said it.
To your soul.
You said it. There is a spiritual component. The scientific world doesn't want to acknowledge that, because if they do that, automatically they have to start thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? Then what do I have to fix? Am I going to go to hell?
So what is this?
They don't want that to go in their head. So they say, you know what? No, your brain is it's all an illusion. All these things are just physiological, just chemicals shooting and impulses in your brain, creating the illusion of sight and hearing. It's nothing. But they cannot answer the question of how do you bridge the gap of physical mush. Nerves and your brain is just meat, okay? You eat meat, right? Does the meat ever do anything? No, it's just meat. This physical mush, how do you bridge the gap from there to thought?
Just neurons.
To thought, emotion. You know what neurons is? It's electricity and ions like salt moving back and forth. You've seen salt? You've seen salt. Does the salt think?
Could.
It may be in your brain.
Put it in the right environment.
But that's the point. Do you understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? This is a big philosophical thing. What the scientists their answer is just, the chemical reactions give you the illusion of all these things, but really it's not really anything special.
Can't really dismiss science.
I'm not dismissing. I'm challenging. Science is very important. I love science, but it's limited. You have to remember, but it's limited.
Science is there to prove for us.
It's a fact.
That's also debatable. I don't get into that. But the point is here, okay? That's why I said beyond. Everything we just said is in the word and beyond, which means it doesn't stop at the brain. There's a gap that needs to be made to the spiritual portion, your soul, that's experiencing all these senses and thinking and higher thought and all these things. Okay, let's
Let me
continue.
ask you a question. Do animals think?
No.
On a very, very low, basic, what's the word? Instinctual level. They don't think about, why did God create me? They don't think about that. They can't. They think about when is my next meal, when is my next mating season, is it time for me to sleep? That's it.
And they technically have the same brains as us, technically.
It looks the same, more or less. It's just mush. It's amazing, right?
Nefesh comes into play.
Nefesh is in the blood.
They're missing
The brain is in the
soul.
shama. Yeah.
They're missing components of the soul. All they have is
Yes,
the
they have
blood.
nefesh.
They don't have the neshama.
Very basic,
They have
right?
Nefesh. They don't have ruach.
Nefesh is instinctual. It's in the blood. Very basic stuff.
So they don't have the other.
So they usually think.
And it's in the liver and blood. Yeah.
Animals usually think on the now, like how am I going to survive?
Exactly.
now?
They don't have a 401k. Animals, you know what I mean?
Good.
You understand?
My meat stocks went down.
Okay. So now, says further over here, the eye is the window, the gateway through which the reality of the outer world enters the inner world of the seer. One more time. Deep sentence. One more time. The eye is the window, the gateway through which the reality of the outer world enters the inner world of the seer. Yes? Good. Next paragraph. In the deeper wisdom, it is taught that Hashem's name of essence, now we're learning about Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? Yud, then Nehei, and then Vav and Nehei, that's his main name, encompasses all and contains 5 parts. Do you know that? It has 5 parts.
Well, it has 4 letters.
4 letters, but it has 5 parts. So look. Each of the letters is 1 part, and then the upper left portion of the first letter, which is Yud, is considered the 5th part. Okay, I want you to look very, very closely at the Yud. The upper left, again, here's the font of this Yud is not great. If you look in the Sefer Torah, it has a little thorn.
On the top.
Top of the
it
Yud.
goes up.
Yes.
But every letter has that where it goes up.
Most letters have it, yeah, most letters.
Especially like Hashem's name, Yud Hei Vav Hei.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's more visible.
Don't say the letter straight, you have to break it up.
Every single one of the letters has it, technically.
Yes.
A, Vav, and Yud.
Yes, but the Yuds is Kabbalistically more significant, as I'm about to explain. Okay? So it's called Kotz shel Yud. Kotz shel Yud, which means the point / thorn of the Yud. Note number 4. Okay, we'll explain that. Each one of these parts correlates to one or more of the Sefirot. Okay, so the Sefirot, we didn't give a formal explanation on what the Sefirot are yet in our series here in these videos. It's a very important part of the Sefer. And if you look at the very last page of the Sefer, okay, there is it's page 527. There is a diagram. I want to just give you a brief introduction on this so we understand. This diagram, each circle here is called a sephirah, a sphere. It's a certain light, an emanation, a power of God, so to speak, through which He manages the world.
Not the worlds, right?
These aren't the world. These all exist in each world. These are attributes, powers, basic building blocks that exist in every world. The purest form of them, at a simple level, is at the highest world, called Olam HaAtzilut. Okay? You see the very, very top, Keter? Keter means crown. See the little opening over there? That opening, the beyond, is what we call, there's other things in between, but just to keep it simple, it's called Ein Sof. Ein Sof means no end. It means infinity. It's infinite, unknowable godliness. Okay?
Above the Keter, right?
Above. We're going to explain this now in this chapter too. But there's 4 basic worlds that come after that contract from that infinity. There's 4 major worlds that contract downwards. First one is called Atzilut, then it's called Beri'ah, then Yetzirah, then Asiyah. We're in the lowest one, Asiyah. Okay? The first one, Atzilut, is this whole thing is in Atzilut. This whole diagram. Again, also remember, this diagram is just a diagram. It's just for our minds to understand. I didn't write it here. This whole thing is inside the world of Atzilut. This diagram is just a good diagram for us to understand. It doesn't have any intrinsic holiness in it. You know, it's literally, there's no diagrams up there in that world. It's all spiritual light. Okay, we're talking at very deep levels now. So, each one of these Sefirot have interactions, have specific things about them that eventually go down and trickle down into our world. Everything you see, everything you experience in life is a manifestation of one or more of these Sefirot. Okay? Is a realization, concrete, right? As we'll see. So now, let's go back. Each chapter goes deeper and deeper explaining them and how they work. So this is the beginning. Each one of these parts correlates to one or more of the Sefirot, which means now each letter of God, the Yud, then the Hey, then the Vav, then the Hey, connects to some of these Sefirot.
So the Yud goes with Keter.
Yes. No, not so look, we'll explain it here. The significance of this, each one of these parts correlates to one or more of the Sefirot. With the point of the Yud, which is the Kotz, right? The little dot, little horn, correlating with Keter. That correlates with Keter. The first of the Sefirot. Okay?
So it's the crown.
Yeah, so I didn't write this, but I'll tell you the rest. Just if you look back at the page 527. The Kotz of the Yud is Keter. Then, Hey, which is the next letter, is Chokhmah on the left side. See that? Now, whatever you see on the left here is actually the right. Whatever you see on the left is actually the right, meaning it's reversed. It's looking at you. It's looking at you. That's how we did it. In science, in class, in school, that's how they teach you. Because when you're dealing with a patient, when you say right, you're talking about the patient's right.
Now you're right. Yeah.
The patient's right is my left. So it's looking at you. So same thing. This is looking at you. Okay. So Chokhmah is the Hey. I'm sorry. Go back again. The Kotz, the point of the Yud is Keter. The rest of the Yud is Chokhmah. The first Hey in God's name is Binah. The Vav is the next 6. They come as a package. So that means Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. That's the Vav. The last Hey is Malchut, the bottom.
Wait, that's 7.
The last Hey is Malchut.
what's dot is part of Vav?
Dot, ignore dot for now.
So dot is...
Dot is a pseudo-sphira, it's part of Keter, technically. It's the very, very bottom of Keter.
Okay.
It's called dot because, we'll see.
Or characteristics or traits of the Shem.
Yes. Traits, characteristics, lights, emanations, no direct word. All these things together, you understand? It's call it this way, it's the rules by which God manages the world. As we'll see. Again, right now it's all mumbo jumbo, but as you keep coming to the class and reading the book,
See how it connects.
yes, by the end of the book you should have a thorough understanding of all this. Okay, we have 5 more minutes, so let's continue over here. We're talking about Keter now, the very first one. The Kotz of the Yud is Keter, the dot. The creative power, the significance of this point is literally endless. Do not let its size fool you, of the point of the Yud. This is the place where the strongest creative power manifests. What is called the Yeshmein, there is from there is not. Or more famously, something from nothing. That's where it starts. Because remember, before Keter,
Well, that's when the world was created, something from nothing.
yes. So you have to, we'll go into it. You have to look back and just keep a finger always on that diagram, okay?
There's an opening.
The way that they propagate downwards, they unfold, if you will. Unfold, imagine a paper huge paper, that you folded endlessly. Fold it once, fold it again, fold it, right? Endlessly. So then you have a little dot, you have a little point. That little point, like more than what you could physically, imagine theoretically, more than what you physically fold. You fold it till you have a little speck, size of a grain of sand. That is Keter. Before that was just God's infinity. Then God said, I want to create a physical world where there can be people that I can interact with. So then he condensed we'll see this, but he condensed some of his infinity in one space. It's very, very hard, where you have that little speck that I just described. You have that speck. That was Keter. Then you start unfolding. You open the fold, and you open the fold, and you open the fold, you open the fold, until you get the huge page. That's the physical world. You understand? So if you go back to the speck, each unfolding is the next sphira. Keter, unfolding number 1, Chokhmah. Next one, Bina. Next one, Chesed. Next one, Gevurah. Next one,
Is there
Tiferet.
accepted interpretation of how to explain or understand this truth?
Yes.
Is there different interpretations?
No, everyone agrees. This is simple. It's a downwards propagation.
Okay.
It's stepwise downwards propagation, starting from Keter downwards. Yes, this is accepted. This is not no chidush.
These are all good traits.
Of course, everything about God is good. Nothing about God is bad. Chas
Yeah, but
v'shalom.
is there like a balance?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of balance. We'll talk about it. All in the right time. Right now we're just focusing on where it starts, which is Keter. So again, that little point is where Keter starts. And that little point correlates to the little dot of the Yud, above, not the whole Yud, the dot above the Yud. The little corner. Only divine power can generate this creative force. The power to create comes from God only. Right? He invested in us as well. We have the power. He put it in us. But it came from God. Look at note number 7. This is a power that God vested in man as well, in the form of free will. See Rabbi Akiva Tatz, he explains how your free will is your creative ability. Look over there, pages 15 through 18 in Will, Freedom, and Destiny. One of my favorite books. Personally, I think every Jewish person must read this book. It's called Will, Freedom, and Destiny by Rabbi Tatz.
Can I borrow it?
Why should you borrow it? I have notes in mine.
I need to know.
Okay, these are my filtered notes right here. You have the book, Baruch Hashem. It says further over here. Again, see, this book is so deep, it's amazing that I have to stop at every sentence and explain to you the depth behind every book. Baruch Hashem, thank God you have me. Do you understand? If I wrote all these things I just explained in this book would be 3 times the size. Do you understand? You have to start cutting out some things.
You should offer certain books, like if you buy a book for a college or something, they come with like the audio, like a video
Audio
version of what's it
CD.
called? Yeah, so you have to put a QR code on the what's
To
it
get the
called?
audio.
Yeah, to get for all these videos, get the audio.
You said it. Okay, a couple more minutes, guys. I want to just finish the paragraph at least, and then we'll go deep next time. Is that the Shem? So we're saying over here, Keter is where the first spark of divine influence, divine will, meaning God's will, begins to pour down and propagate into the physical world. This is intrinsic to the Kotz of the Yud, because it is precisely where ink meets the parchment when writing the name of essence. Where black is first discernibly recognized on the white background, i.e. something from nothing. Meaning look at the note number 8. The Kotz of the Yud, imagine a blank parchment, and now the sofer wants to write God's name. Sefer Torah, whatever it is, mezuzah, right? The Kotz of the Yud is the first drop of ink that is inscribed on the parchment.
Is that how you have to write it?
Yes, because the Yud is the first letter of the name, obviously, and each individual letter is written from the left side of it to the right.
So there's halachot of how to write.
Absolutely, of course.
I can't write it from backward, like
No.
Wow.
No. You want to be a Lechatchila Jew or B'diavad Jew?
Okay, I'm just saying.
I want to be a Jew.
Each letter, so it goes like this, like that. That's how it's written. It goes
Even when
that
you
way.
write normal?
That's why most of the letters have that little kotz, because that kotz is what? It's the feather. It's the angle of the quill. Hits, boom, and then they continue. Then they pull. If it's a hey, for example, pull down. If it's a yud, pull left to right. You understand?
That's the beginning mark.
Yes. So something from nothing starts in the kotz of the yud, just like keter, the creation of the whole world. Something from nothing starts with keter. Okay? What seems like a merely insignificant dot is actually the crucial point of initial manifestation of Hashem's influence into this world, in other words, existence altogether, from a dot. And with that, we're going to leave it. We're on page 50, B'ezrat Hashem 50. Look how beautiful Hashem did it. We're on page 50 and we're approaching the holiday of 50. Shavuot, the 50th day, when Hashem gave us the Torah. So everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen ve'amen.